That's chatting. Blah, blah.
All right, we're good.
We're good. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you and welcome everybody. This is the Monomoy Regional School District, Monomoy Regional School Committee for Thursday, June 10th. It is 6:31 p.m. This meeting is being held fully remotely tonight in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts, March 12th, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, GLC 30A, Section 20. So I'm going to officially call the meeting to order with a roll call vote of school committee members. When I call on you, if you could just say your full name and present. I'll start with Sharon.
Sharon Stout, present.
Thank you. Joanne.
Joanne Sheehan, present.
Thank you. Joe.
Joe Osceola, present.
Thank you. Terry.
Terry Russell, present.
Thank you. Meredith.
Meredith Henderson, present.
Thank you. Nancy.
Nancy Scott, present.
And Jackie.
Jackie Long, present.
Thank you. And Tina Games, present. So we are going to begin, and we will move to the first item of business, our student representative for the final time, who is a graduate now. Welcome, Miss Amy Hinesley.
Thank you, Ms. Gaines. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me this year. It's been a pleasure keeping you all updated with our busy student body. To start out May, students began taking AP tests, which were spread out over 2 weeks with every subject from Latin to biology to computer science. And then later in the month, an in-person senior arts night was held in the amphitheater outside of the library. Interact Club has been working on growing and maintaining a vegetable and herb garden outside the school near the cafeteria. Key Club hosted 2 beach cleanups at Harding's and Chatham, both recently. The Chatham Rotary Student of the Month for May was Lily Daniels Deal. This spring season, we had teams for tennis, track and field, unified track, golf, softball, lacrosse, and baseball. Track and unified track just recently finished their seasons over the last 2 weeks, and the rest will be done soon. They all worked very hard this year, especially given the circumstances. The May and June scholar athletes were Angelica Velasquez, Ryder Robbins, Colin Malone, and Kate Gabri. And Spring Sports Awards Night will be held on June 16th on the turf in person. As for some senior news, we were able to hold a wonderful prom on the front lawn at the end of May. Our prom Queen and King were Maggie Dever and Justice Canto. On May 20th, 6 seniors presented their Global Studies capstone presentations, the culmination of the diploma program that has been worked towards since sophomore year. The presentations covered topics such as income inequality, HIV, and the linear waste trade. 5 received a Global Studies diploma and 1 received Global Studies diploma with distinction. On June 6th, seniors participated in the graduation processional driving throughout Harwich before lining up to take their seats on the turf. 115 seniors earned their diplomas after numerous speeches and awards, one from Miss Gaines. Among those awards were the Principal Pride Award, which went to Mark Sherry, and the Brooks Scholar Award, which went to Jessica Brown. The weather and production were perfect, promising a bright future for the graduates. And thank you again for having me this year. I hope you enjoy listening to my predecessor, Charlotte Blute, next year.
Thank you, Amy. So Charlotte's going to join us next year.
Was I not supposed to say that?
No. That was perfectly fine. It's good to know.
I don't know if that was a surprise.
No, that's fine. You did just fine. Any questions or comments for Amy? All right, Nancy, go ahead.
I just have a comment to say thank you. You've been incredibly helpful in keeping us well informed with all of the happenings at the high school. So congratulations on graduating, and thank you for spending the year with us.
Thank you.
Thank
Amy,
you. Terry. Yep, Terry, go ahead.
Congratulations. Have a great year at Cornell next year. One of my assistants' son went and just loved it. And you have the advantage of having a partner from Howard's joining you. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's very unusual to have 2 going to the same college. So you got the best of both worlds.
Thank you.
Yeah, and both are Amy's too. Yeah. Anybody else? All right. So Amy, on a personal note, I've known you since I think you were probably I don't know, 4th or 5th grade back in the Girl Scouts. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you this year. I've thoroughly enjoyed watching you blossom over the last few years, and of course on the field hockey team as well. And I wish you well. You just moved around on my screen. I wish you well and good luck at Cornell, and please stay in touch.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy.
Bye, everyone.
All right, moving on to approval of minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve this evening. The first is May 13th. This one came back for review tonight. So could I have a motion to approve the May 13th minutes?
So moved.
All right, so Nancy has moved. Could I have a second?
Second.
And I think I heard Terry. Any discussion? All right, I don't see any hands. So we're going to take a vote to approve the May 13th minutes. We'll start with Joe. Let's start with you.
Joe Osceola, aye.
Thank you. Joanne?
Joanne Sheehan, yay.
Thank you. Terry?
Terry Russell, aye.
Thank you. Nancy?
Nancy Scott, aye.
Thank you. Jackie?
Jackie Long, aye.
Thank you. Meredith?
Meredith Henderson, aye.
All right. And Tina Gaines, aye. And Sharon, there you are. I was looking to see where you hopped on my screen. Sharon?
Sharon Stout, aye.
Okay, perfect. So that's unanimous. The May 13th minutes pass. And the next set of minutes is from May 27th. Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Nancy. A second?
Second.
I heard Meredith. Any discussion? Seeing none, we're going to, this is approval for the May 27th minutes, starting with Joanne.
Wait a minute. I wasn't listening.
Oh, that's okay. This is for the May 27th.
I was trying to make this straight and it wasn't going straight.
No, that's all right. And Joanne, I think you may have to abstain. I don't think you were at the last meeting. So this
I
would
was
be,
not.
okay, so you're abstaining.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Joe?
I was present at the last meeting, so Joe Osceola, aye.
Thank you. Terry?
Terry Russell, aye.
Thank you. Sharon?
Sharon Stout, aye.
Thank you. Nancy?
Nancy Scott, aye.
Thank you. Meredith?
Meredith Henderson, aye.
Thank you. Jackie?
Jackie Long, aye.
All right, thank you. And Tina Gaines, aye. So that passes unanimously. Now we're going to move into public comment. Is there anyone here tonight from the public? And if you can turn your camera on and just give me a wave if you would like to speak tonight. I am seeing no one, so we're going to move through public comment. All right, we're moving into reports and discussions. And the first item, which is so very exciting, it's Ashley Cook's 3rd grade class. They are presenting, it's a project-based learning, and the title is Influencers in Harwich History. So Ms. Cook, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gaines. I'm just going to get my screen started here and share my screen with you all here. Okay, so thank you so much for your time. Today we're going to talk about our Harwich Influencer project-based learning that we're doing here at Harwich Elementary School. My name is Ashley Cook, and I'm a 3rd grade teacher at Harwich Elementary School. I'm also a 2005 graduate of Harwich High School and a resident here in town, but I'm here to boast mostly about some of the engaging deep learning that's happening in our classrooms. So first, I just want to go over what is PBL. PBL is when students work on a project over an extended amount of time that engages them in real-world problems solving and answering complex questions. They demonstrate their knowledge and skills by putting together a public product or presentation for a real-life audience. As a result of this learning, students develop deep content knowledge with critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, and communication. Project-based learning unleashes a contagious and creative environment among students and teachers. So PBL lends itself to deep engaging learning. Teachers engage and coach students while scaffolding learning of content standards. Students manage these activities and participate in interdisciplinary lessons such as research, data taking, note taking, and information gathering. Our essential question that we focused on for this unit is, how did the people from our history influence the development of Harwich and Chatham and my life as a citizen in Massachusetts living in Harwich and Chatham today? So our Chatham counterparts are focusing more on their hometown of Chatham, which is a really unique and awesome, excellent opportunity for our students to get to know the place that they live. And I'm going to have my first presenter come and talk to you about PBL.
Good evening. My name is Owen Wilder, and I am a third grader at Harwich Elementary School. One of the exciting parts of project-based learning is our kickoff event. For the kickoff event of our Harwich Influencer PBL, we took a walking tour of the historic Harwich Center. We took a stroll around the block looking at the village as if it were more than 150 years ago. We had to imagine that there were no cars, street lights, or gas stations, but instead bustling, dusty roads filled with horse-drawn carriages and townsfolk all about. We looked at many of the historic homes and town buildings, heard the stories of people who built and or lived in them, and investigated the architecture styles and characteristics of these old buildings. We sat on the steps of Brooks Block, known today as Brooks Free Library, to hear the story of how Brooks Park was donated to the town and the iconic cannons that caused 3 accidents and at least 2 deaths. We had to imagine seeing the tallest and grandest building in town, the Exchange Building, hardly believing that such a place could have existed. We wrapped up our tour after visiting the First Congregational Church Cemetery, where we were able to see a few gravestones of the names we heard on our walk and other important influencers, including American Revolutionary War veterans. Hello, my name is Gabby Rebecca, and I'm a third grader at Harwich Elementary School. Harwich was incorporated in 1694, so we had more than 327 years of Harwich history to explore. For our first 3 milestones as a class, we created a timeline to study our town's history. We mapped out villages of Native Americans on Cape Cod and connected our previous learning about the Wampanoag, Nauset, Monomoy, and Nantucket tribes. We investigated the colonial period through the 19th century as our 7 villages grew. We then analyzed the last century and some of the people living in town today that are making impacts in our lives right now. While learning about our town, we focused on the people who lived here or still live here and contributed to the well-being of the town. Hi, I'm Linnea Tabana, a 3rd grade student at Harwich Elementary. While completing our timeline, we learned about each of the 7 villages of Harwich and the landforms of the town. We investigated the industries that help shape our town, including fishing, cranberries, tourism, and arts, to name a few. We were fortunate to take another walking field trip to visit Brooks Academy. We got a close look at the old powder house and the outhouse outside the museum. While standing in the halls of the Pinegrove Seminary, the museum director and volunteers enlightened us with knowledge of Harwich's past. We learned about the impact of the cranberry industry, Cape Verdean heritage, and how railroads connected us. We learned about local artist Virginia Pina and visited the exhibit on Charles D. Cahoon to see his incredible Cape scenes. I'm Lily Rebecca. I'm a 3rd grade student at Harwich Elementary. After learning about all these stories, we took some time to reflect on what we had learned. We thought about who we felt had an impact on our town. We recorded the qualities and characteristics of an influencer. We decide that influencers are generous, inspirational, kind, brave, innovative, and respectful. We select a person to investigate further. We created a list of I wonder questions to help guide our learning. Some questions might sound like this. Why did you want to be an explorer? What difficulties did you meet when you were traveling? Was it hard leaving the town and leaving your family? Or when you were younger, were you thinking about traveling around the world? After creating the list of I wonder questions, we use these questions to guide our research or interview questions. We use primary and secondary sources to research and find answers. We learned about 4 tips of successful interviews and even practice interviewing our classmates. We are excited to use Flipgrid and learn more about using Loom to create videos to save and share. Hi again, I'm Linnea Sagano. For our final project, we will take all of the investigating, research, and information, and using the first-person perspective, perform a short living history museum exhibit. Living history museum exhibits include a short biographical speech like this, one about the brave Jonathan Walker. Hello, it's me, Jonathan Walker. You may know me by the man with the brand in hand. People call me that because I was a slave freer. And they caught me, so my punishment was them branding my hand. You also may not know, but I am also a sea captain. In case you were wondering, my hand was branded with the letters SS for slave stealer. It was on my right hand. I was born in 1799 and I died on May 1st, 1878. I also arranged to take 7 runaway slaves to the Bahamas. I pretty much got everywhere using my boat, but sometimes I got seasick. Believe it or not, that's how I got caught.
Excellent job. And thank you to Linnea, Gabby, Lily, and Owen, and all of the volunteers that helped us tonight to present our grade 3 capstone project. Project-based learning provides our students with diverse and enriching learning experiences that are student-driven, authentic, and engaging. It's been a pleasure sharing with you all the incredible hard work that our students have been engaging in. Thank you for your time, and a special thanks to our community for supporting our students' learning.
Thank you very, very much, Ms. Cook and third graders. That was excellent. And let me just call on school committee members for any questions or comments. Just raise your hand, school committee members. Joanne, go ahead, and then Sharon. Oh, and Joanne, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. I just want to say how impressed I was with primary and secondary sources. I'm amazed at 3rd grade. That's what you children were able to discern. Good work.
Thank you. Sharon?
Yes, I was thrilled with this. First of all, I love the topic, influences in Harwich history. I think it's great to, I have to admit that I didn't know about any of those influences, having lived here for a very long time. The work quality was excellent. It's so nice to see students come and do something like that. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Terry, I saw your hand. Go ahead.
Thanks, Tina. Ms. Cook, great job. I was taking some notes and I was just listening and not really staring at each youngster that came to the microphone. And I would have fully agreed that they were 6th graders, not 3rd graders, sharing their research. So we can look forward to a very sharp class of kids moving up the line. Great job. So SS was slave stealer. What an interesting story.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
absolutely. Any other school committee members? Nancy, go ahead.
I just want to echo everybody else. Thank you, Ms. Cook, and thank you, students, for coming before us tonight and presenting that. You guys did an excellent job You were very articulate and you explained things really, really well. So thank you so much for sharing all that you learned.
Thank you. Anybody else from school committee? I wanted just to make a comment. First of all, fabulous. I mean, I'm looking at the frame here with all 4 of the students, Ms. Cook, so good. And I have a request. I know Joy Jordan is in the room here somewhere. There's a group in Harwich, many of us know, called the Harwich Old Timers. I think they would love this presentation. And Joy, I don't know if there's a way to capture the video, the segment of the presentation, and perhaps we could share it in the Old Timers group. That would be terrific. I think they would really appreciate this. Thank you. Anybody else from school committee? And I see a public member's hand, and typically we don't take public comment. However, unless there's any, I might make an exception this evening just because I know that this is a special presentation. School committee members, if there's objection, let me know. Any objection? All right, Ms. Tavano, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I wasn't familiar with that protocol, but I agree with you. I think the old timers would really enjoy it. I would also, it would be nice to see, as Sharon stated, and maybe some others, that they weren't aware of all of this history, and even a short pamphlet or something that could go out to the public through town meeting or something would be great. And also the idea of influencers, which is to me a more contemporary term in social media, and I'm sure the kids are familiar with it that way, bringing that into our own community and the past and pulling those things together was just a wonderful idea and unique. So I will say good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sharon, go ahead.
Yes, Donna's comment made me think of this, that one of our former teachers from the high school, Angie Chalaka, has done some interviewing of some Harwich old timers, some Harwich natives. And I think that this would be, if she's making a collection, something that she might be interested to put with that. Yeah, I would love to see some of this work saved because I don't know where we learn about this. Once we're out of school. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Anybody else from school committee? Any closing comments, Ms. Cook or students?
I'd just like to say thank you to all of you. And to answer Joanne's question, I'm going to pay a little respect here to my favorite history teacher at the high school who is retiring this year, Mr. Houston, who really put a love of history in our hearts of students, and I hope to pass that on to future generations here in Harwich. So just to keep that going. Do you guys have anything to say?
No.
Just to thank you. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And we appreciate you adapting for our virtual platform tonight. So thank you all. All right, good night. All right, moving to the next item on our agenda under reports and discussions is the presentation of the Harwich Elementary School 2021-2023 School Improvement Plan. And I see Principal Oldak, so I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Tina. I'm Mary Oldak, proud principal of Harwich Elementary School. And while the kids were presenting, I unfortunately shut the tab down on my own slideshow. So bear with me while I pull that back up.
And while we're waiting for you, Principal Oldak, great job being the principal of that wonderful group of kids, and Ms. Cook, that was really terrific. Really, really terrific.
Thank you very much. It's, sorry. Here we go. I actually have never shared on Zoom before, so thank you, Tina, for that. It's, I think what you just saw is such a testament to the impact of project-based learning in our curriculum, which really was spurred with the COVID pandemic last April, when we were searching for a way for our children to be off the screens and more involved in nature and in their community. And project-based learning, we kicked that off, and distance learning 2.0 over April break. And you can just see that the level of connection and engagement and investment in their community. Thank you very much. I am so excited to present to you tonight the Harwich Elementary School School Improvement Plan for 2021 to 2023. We did have a one-year transition school improvement plan when I was named the principal of Harwich Elementary, just for that transition of 1 year. And then, of course, last year with COVID, our school improvement plan really did kind of move aside, in the sense that we were so focused on COVID and remote learning and getting back to school in person with all our protocols in place. I did want to thank Joy Jordan for her assistance in helping to format and craft our school improvement plan. What we were really looking for was to develop a school improvement plan that was a public-facing document, where the formatting was such that it was a standalone document for the community that they could just pick up and read and understand without having any explanation. So we really, our goal was to create a document that almost had kind of an annual report feeling to it. So the public gets a sense of who Harwich Elementary is through all of our demographic data, and then we move into the school improvement plan. So as we were creating the school improvement plan, we really were focused on two areas, which is the recovery from COVID and what has been an ongoing vision for our school council here at Harwich Elementary, supporting the whole child. We are very grateful to the 16-member school council that we have at Harwich, that is very, very vibrant. We have 5 parent representatives, 4 community members, and a total of 6 staff members. We pretty much have representatives, parents, and staff members from every grade, as well as community members that represent a nice cross section of our town and interests, from our youth services, our early childhood council, and the Burke Street Library, as well as retired teachers as well. As we were looking at our school improvement plan for these next 2 years, it became very apparent very quickly that we really needed to look at how we were going to recover from COVID, as well as how we were going to move forward our vision for our school that was in place prior to COVID, and how those two could dovetail together. As we look at COVID and its impact on learning here in the school, we really need to acknowledge all of the stressors on the community and on the students and on the staff. There was a very steep learning curve with technology and the distance learning model. Monomoy really led the way with getting up and going with remote learning so quickly, with less than a week turnaround time from the time the school closed until we were up and going. And this is, Assistant Principal Hughes will talk about, actually is one of our silver linings. Our in-person models were very significantly modified for health and safety protocols with the 6-foot distancing. Many of the classroom furnishings had to be removed. The collaborative work model isn't as in place as it would be, which is very much very fundamental to how young children learn. Our in-person pivots to remote learning, we've been very proud of how quickly and efficiently we've been able to make those happen, but it's still a disruption to our instructional pacing. And we also, have stressors on the caregivers when remote learning is in place. with childcare, whether or not they're able to supervise the student learning at home, depending on the age of the students, financial stressors that we've seen all of our families go through with job loss, housing instability, food instability, health threats that have been ongoing and unpredictable with our families and our staff. All of these things tend to heighten traumatic histories in both our children and in our community, which impacts learning. And I really want to underscore the fact that when we talk about these stressors of COVID, we're not just talking about our students, it impacts our staff as well. And those, when we just think about the impact, we really need to think about those receiving instruction as well as those who are delivering instruction. And I'm just so proud of this school community and how we have, they've just championed through this. The staff here has just met every challenge with the team spirit here is just even better than it was prior to COVID. And that again is one of the silver linings. What to try to capture the achievement loss that we have seen in our student body. What we did was we took the MAP scores, the measures of academic progress, and we looked at the winter 2020 for both math and reading. Winter 2020, those MAP tests were administered right before the closure, so January of 2019. So that's the proxy for our pre-COVID student achievement. And we looked at that versus winter of 2021. So these are the scores from January and winter 2021, just this past January. So what we see here, winter 2020, winter 2021 for both math and reading, really is the best proxy we have of how we can capture the loss in academic achievement for our students. And so when we talk about academic achievement loss, what does that mean? What it means is that a student who was a high flyer might not be flying as highly. A student who was grade level may not be quite grade level. So it doesn't mean that our students are all have lost tremendous actual achievement, but they have lost achievement relative to themselves, which is not okay. We need to support all of our students with regaining what their academic achievement has been and really address all students' needs so that they're continuing to learn and grow. So when we look over here at graduation year and current grade, we have the year of graduation in grade 1, for example, and we can look at those students for math, pre-COVID and post-COVID, have a academic achievement loss of a negative 21%. And the reading loss is not quite as substantial at minus 18. We can see that our younger grades definitely have a higher achievement loss. And that is because that's the younger grades is when the real foundational skills are forming in both math and reading, and the difference in the instructional models of the way that instruction can happen in a socially distanced environment versus a traditional model for how youngsters are best instructed with collaborative work, hands-on work, lots of manipulatives. It just isn't the same. And then we also have our distance learners where they're just learning remotely. We also can see that the academic losses have not been as significant at the upper grades in 3rd and 4th grade. Another interesting comparison is that the losses in math are generally higher than in reading. And this is, the research is saying that this is really because math is such a sequential project, such a sequential curriculum where the skills build on each other, and there's not a lot of spiraling in our curriculum versus reading. Kids are taught main idea in first grade, they're taught main idea in second grade, and what they're, even though those concepts are spiraling, they're becoming a little bit more inferential, whereas math tends to be more of a build. The silver linings of COVID, our assistant principal, Sharon Hughes, is going to talk about the silver linings. We are just going to exchange chairs because she's been right here with me while the kids were presenting.
Hi, everybody. Sharon Hughes, Assistant Principal at Harwich Elementary. So yes, I'm just going to share some of the highlights of the COVID impact and the silver linings that are so important for us to recognize. Our first bullet, increased technology savvy students. Our students were connected daily through the use of their Chromebooks, and they were in person and remotely, using apps, doing research, doing everything we can imagine to stay connected to school and to each other. And it was so nice to see how much they grew with their technology skills, which they will use in the future. Secondly, project-based learning. We saw an excellent example of that tonight with what we saw with our grade 3 students who just presented the Harwich Influencers and Harwich History project. They worked so hard, and I think you could see how excited they were and how engaged they were in their learning. I also want to highlight project-based learning happened for all our grade levels, and our grade 4 students are doing a wonderful job with their state fair project and just did presentations last week with tri-folded boards highlighting each state and the resources and the problems that they face, and that was incredible. Third bullet, even closer classroom cohort relationships. We have seen all of our students become so close to each other and grow in so many ways. We had class sizes between 12 and 16. We were 6 feet away every day, learning, eating, growing, doing all that they needed to do. All of our unified arts teachers came into each classroom to work with them. So it really created an intimate classroom relationship for everyone. And our last silver lining, the social emotional proficiency, which I'll go into on the next slide. So our SEL competencies are an important area that we have really been lucky to have a system, an online system called SSIS to be able to go in and see how our students have grown. We were happy to see that 82% of our students were ranked at the proficient level, and 13% were emerging, and only 5%, very small percent of our students out of the 365 that we looked at this year over 3 different timeframes, fall, winter, and spring, were doing well. So nice to see all that green there. But let me talk a little bit more about social emotional competencies. That is based on the CASTLE framework, which the Monomoy Regional School District adopted. And that's based on 5 key areas: self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. So they were ranked by their teachers in all those areas. And we, again, as I said, did it 3 times this year. Our June results are just about to come back. So, so nice to see that our kids have retained their social emotional growth and made those gains this year. We are really proud here at Harwich Elementary that our positive student-centered culture promotes social emotional learning, and that we have a deep and rich support system that you can see outlined in this school improvement plan that we presented tonight. So thank you, everyone, and I'll give the floor, or should I say screen, back to Mary.
And while we're having a change in chairs, I just saw Terry's hand raised. So it looks like we're going to have a question. Go ahead, Terry.
Thanks, Tina. Sharon or Mary, thank you. This, I can see this projection in the other elementary school, the middle and high school. It's so a great deal of clarity about being diagnosed, and it's so good for us to see this information as to just how damaging the pandemic was to learning. And at the same time, my question, which is silver lining, Sharon, or both of you, if I'm catching this correctly, I had a chance to look at it a few days ago. The learning of math and reading consistently, there was a big slippage. with percentages in grade 1 through 4. The SEL is almost the opposite, if I'm reading this correctly, that the kids who would normally be struggling, November of 2020, there were 336 students with 73%, 22%, 101, and 5% with 21 kids representing that area of the SEL. During the pandemic, those numbers of 82, 13, and 5 show that almost, if I'm reading this correctly, the kids' growth in the area of emotional. So interesting. I'd like to have your insights in that. When the tough gets going, the going gets tougher.
I think, Terry, thank you for mentioning that and highlighting that. We are very, very proud as a district of the focus and efforts and all of the tools that we have in place for our children, pre-K through 12 across Monomoy. It's been a focus of our strategic plan, and I am most proud of this because it just speaks volumes to the school culture, the culture in this district of focusing on what is most important, which is the whole child and their social emotional health. And the fact that we have been coming through this with a higher proficiency level across these competencies is, I think, just such a testimony to the focus and priority that we have placed on the children during the pandemic. The achievement losses, there are things we have, what we're experiencing is very typical across the world. The percentages that we're seeing, if not less than what many districts are experiencing, because they haven't even been in person until fairly recently. And it's ground that we can recover once we can get our instructional models back into place. And I would also like to highlight that this is our entire student body. This includes distance learners as well, which is really, I think, a reflection of how we have been supporting the distance learning with many of the same tools that we support our in-person students with, the zones of regulation, our SSP process, the collaboration between the teachers, whether they're remote or in person, with our guidance staff and our other supports that we have here in school. So thank you for asking that question.
And I'm just going
Thank
to
you.
say
And
another part of this too, I think it's
Before you move on, Mary and Sharon, Sharon Stout's hand is up, and can we take another question before you move in?
Sure.
Go ahead, Sharon.
Yes. So I was very intrigued by the achievement, especially because you had it broken out by grade levels, and I was noticing third grade was not the same pattern as the other grades, which is always interesting, and different kids in different grades, they're just different. This one's not broken out by grade levels. Do you have that anywhere broken out by grade levels?
I'll let you talk about that, Sharon.
And the other question is, on this, is this a self-report or a teacher report that scores
Teacher
that?
reported, Sharon. Yeah, the teachers actually report on each student by each competency, so they can go right across and really think about how that student is performing at these 3 different timeframes in the year. And we can delve into the data and break this down class by class. And probably the class that we saw, that needed the most help was second grade. And I think that, that sometimes when we look at that, we're thinking, what have these kids been through? And what this year were the weaker areas? Was it relationship building? Was it emotional regulation? There's so many different things that it can break down to into components. But I think a testament to this too is we are so fortunate at Monomoy that we were together learning, whether it was face-to-face or remotely, from September 14th on. And so many districts across our state and nation were not able to do that. So I think that's why we had so much growth, is because they were connected to each other and here at school, and to their teachers and to the community. And I'm so proud of this as well. So I think there's just more growth to come, but we've had a very connected year, and I think we can all
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, continue, Mary. Thank you.
Thank you. So, then the question is, what are we going to do about this achievement loss and to keep this momentum moving forward with social emotional learning? And there is, we kept coming back to what is the vision statement for our school. This vision statement was crafted originally in 2019 and just revised this school year. And it's very exciting to me as the principal of the school because this vision statement is very organic from within the school council and just fits so beautifully with the philosophy of education that we have here about educating the whole child so that they can reach their fullest academic potential. And we know that through research that if you support the whole child and all the dimensions and provide equitable access across all those dimensions, then that is when we will be able to start seeing those achievement gaps close. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about, these are all examples of different social emotional SEL frameworks. There's all different models out there. This is the one that Monomoy adopted CASEL right here. But when I was on that original task force, we looked at all of these and came back to CASEL as being the one that we felt we could embrace as a district. Likewise, we, as a school council, looked at quite a number of whole child models and frameworks and came to adopt this one by the Chan Zuckerberg, Foundation. And because it had such a perfect reflection of the philosophy and vision of the school council, but it also allowed for areas of growth that we felt that we could really embrace. So when we think about equity across all of these 6 dimensions, it's really important to remember that when we talk about equity and the being such a focus of our district, it's not just about racial equity. It's about equity in all dimensions. And when we chose this framework, it really spoke to when we think about an elementary student, we're thinking about their equity in physical health, those children who don't have access to what they need physically, whether it be, through medical care, dental care, food. We also were looking at the physical health around our infrastructure improvements here at the school with our playground, which is, very exciting for us to be under construction this summer. $800,000 sidewalk grant that will really encourage walking around this campus. And we think about mental health, the equity of for our students around mental health, social emotional development, which is definitely a strength of this school and our district, equity in academic development. As we look at the curriculum for the elementary schools, we are very aware of building connections to identity development, so that the children see windows and mirrors into who they are and who other people are and how they can understand and have empathy. And the equity in cognitive development as well, which is, just the growth mindset and how children organize themselves. I promised Melissa McGuire that I was going to give her a run for her money on her 7-minute, 18-second length of her presentation. And I know I've gone far over that, but I know that you all have seen our school improvement plan. We're very excited about how we feel that this whole child model will address our students' needs. As you read the school improvement plan, items that were phrased or started with the action word of reinstate were related to pre-COVID initiatives, programs that we could not have in place this year because of COVID. And then the new action items were the ones that were also under each one of these 6 equity initiatives that are new to the school. Okay. All right. So I think I will just stop there and see if there are any further questions.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Let me just scroll through. Any school committee members, just throw your hand up. I'm going through. I don't see anyone, Mary, so you can continue. Oh, Sharon, is that you? Oh, okay. We're good, Mary, so you can continue.
Okay, so I'm just actually going to stop here by just talking about the process that we now have in place here at Harwich Elementary. We started in March with our student data meetings, and we have met with 2 of our grade levels since March, and we have come through each child individually with their MAP results, their report cards, their SSIS data. We've looked at their physical health in terms of dental care, food scarcity, anything we know about the family in terms of struggles that they're facing. A child's need for academic support has been difficult this year because we had to convert all of our intervention teachers, classroom teachers. But along this way, as we are talking about each one of these students individually, it's been really wonderful to see how we've been able to just capture those little individual needs of kids who, one little girl had a sight issue and just needed a bigger screen on her Chromebook. The vision issues, the referrals that we've been able to make to our student support team. And they're not issues that would typically percolate up to the level of a building-based student support team, but these are things that our kids need. And each child has different needs that'll help them grow and develop so that they can be their best academically. So this is a practice that we're going to carry forward next year. And it's time consuming because we do have 500 children in this school, but it is so well worth it because we all get to know each child individually, sit and talk with each teacher. And our goal is to do that in the fall and winter of next year. In the way that we're going to be measuring the impact of the whole child model really is, we've thought about it, each action item has a deliverable, yes, but how can we really capture that? And we kept coming back to the measures of academic progress, to MAP. And for those, we've had it in place now, I think for 4 years, and each child has a growth goal. And NEWA, who is a company that puts MAP out, they have a database of over 10 million students. And that growth goal is very specifically built for each student when, for that time in the school year, for that level of achievement, for that type of learning history. And so we know exactly what their growth target is. So if we're supporting each child the way, in a full child way across all these 6 dimensions, they really should have that type of, they should be able to reach those growth goals. So, we just have one simple way to measure this. If our kids are hitting their growth goals, we're meeting their needs and they're learning their best. And so that's why we just have that one focus area and that one metric that we're really going to be focusing on. So that is our school improvement plan through 2023. And just thank you for your time tonight. We're very excited about how we think this model is going to move us forward and help us to address the COVID remediation as well.
Thank you very, very much, Principal Oldak and Assistant Principal Hughes. Any questions from school committee members? Terry, go ahead.
Mary and Sharon, great job. My question directly towards COVID, reclaiming learning, Mary. Your 4th grade group, you've got this profiling, which I'm very impressed with. your fourth grade group is about to move into the middle school.
Mhm.
Because of COVID, do you think there needs to be more, the data needs more time for the fourth grade staff to sit with the fifth grade counselor, middle school counselor, and or maybe the teams over there have not even been assigned yet. So that's a challenge. So because it's such a unique transfer because of pandemic, what do you think might have to be done that would kind of boost these fourth graders into that middle school?
Mhm. So we have a very well-developed transition process with the middle school, and Principal O'Shea and Assistant Principal Dudley have already met with our fourth grade teachers and have asked for this input, and asked for their input around the students' academic needs as well as the students' social emotional needs. So each classroom teacher has that input going, is able to transfer that knowledge onto the staff at the middle school. In addition to that, there are transition meetings for our students in special education on 504s, or who might have more intensive social emotional learning needs. However, another huge strength of MAP in our use of this in the district is that the middle school can pick up that data just like I did. It's easily rolled over and transferable, and they can look at that class coming in just the same way that I did, and we can have those discussions.
Thanks, Mary.
Right. Thank you very much. Sharon, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was very impressed with all that you had to say, but at the very end, I think some things moved too fast for me. One was that you talked about the building-based student support team. Is that going to be an ongoing thing? And if so, how often will that meet?
Yep. So our student support team is our response to intervention, or our multiple tiers of support system that we have in place, that Chatham Elementary, the middle school, the high school have in place. That those meetings happen year round, school year round, every Wednesday, and we monitor students' progress through those meetings, depending upon, we'll set, when we meet on a child and a student support team, we'll set the meeting date depending upon what the goals are, if it's going to be a month, if it's going to be 2 months, and depending upon what interventions those kids have.
So I'm familiar with the intervention thing for children that are exhibiting some form of difficulty, but I thought you said that in March you met on every student.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
That's what I was wondering, if that would happen.
Yes. So the student data meetings are not student support team, and that's the slide that I still have up here. It is actually, it's brand new to Harwich Elementary. We just started it in March in response to how we felt we could really dig into this whole child model and really get at what each child individually needs. And so we met in March, and we'll meet again in the fall. And that's the goal we have set of meeting in the fall and in the winter, because we do want to meet with each teacher about each student. And we do have 500 kids and students to meet on. So but it's so rich and it's so valuable.
And the last question was, at the very end, you were saying that you have one measure, and was the one measure MAP? Is that what?
Yeah, what the percentage of students meeting their growth goal.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Any other school committee members? I am scrolling through. Anybody from school committee? All right, let me just do one more little glance here. Okay, I think we are good. The only thing, Mary, I just wanted just to highlight just 3 very quick things. I love the slide that you're showing us right now about the equity, and I'm glad that you really highlighted the differences in the equity that's all involved in this. So I really, really appreciated that clarification, really, around the word equity. The other thing, Sharon was touching on, and then of course what we saw earlier this evening, I'm such a huge fan of project-based learning, and we really saw that demonstrated tonight, and I really, really appreciate that. The other thing, Mary, that you said that I thought was really, really important to just highlight about COVID in particular, and some of the issues that people were facing, the housing, food, whatever, the food insecurities, etc. You said those giving instruction as well as those receiving instruction. And I'm really glad you said that, because I think sometimes we do think a lot about the students and we can't really forget about our teachers and our staff. So I really appreciate that you made that statement. So thank you very much.
It's a community.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you both for that presentation. And now we're going to move on to the next presentation, which is CPAC, Special Education Parent Advisory Committee. I think if I've got the correct, oh, there it is. It's up on the screen. Special Education Parent Advisory Council. Melissa, I will turn it over to you.
Good evening, Melissa McGuire, Director of Student Services. Unfortunately, our new chair, who I will introduce via slide in a few minutes, is unable to join us tonight. I know she's disappointed, but I will get to introducing her momentarily. So I'm going to present for the Special Education Parent Advisory Council. This is a council that by law we are required to have in our district, and it serves as an advisory group. And what part of that group is required to do is also provide an annual training for all of our parents. And when I say all, I mean all of our parents. This is not just necessarily for parents whose children are receiving special education services. We offer this training to all parents because it's important for them to understand, especially if they're in the process or they're concerned about their child, what the process is to begin that evaluation process or to begin those conversations with the schools. So this year we had 3 meetings. Our first meeting was in February, which was actually conducted by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education as part of our tiered focus monitoring. So there was a parent meeting to talk about special education in the Monomoy Regional School District. We then met with Meredith, the school committee liaison, and our new PAC chair to just talk a little bit about future planning. And then we held our annual basics rights evaluation and eligibility on April 1st, and that was held virtually. So the CPAC is authorized to provide advice to the district regarding its special education programs and policies. So we are committed to really working collaboratively together to really look at our programs and our policies and to be very inclusive of our parents. And here is Emily Bradley, our new CPAC chair. We are thrilled to have her. We do have an email address for the CPAC for anyone who is interested in more information, who would like to connect with Emily. This is the email address, and of course it is up on the website. And membership is open to all parents because there are other trainings that we offer throughout the year. So moving forward, what we're really looking to do is to strengthen our partnership with families, the CPAC, and the district, to engage more families in the activities that are developed through the CPAC, and then to develop and strengthen the types of activities the CPAC can offer parents. And then finally, which I'm really excited about, I had an opportunity to speak with the Mass PAC chair. Her name is Leslie. Yes, that is her name, Leslie. And I had asked her about the opportunity to form a regional CPAC that could perhaps reach more parents with diverse needs, and that perhaps each district could host a different training so that all of the Cape and Island districts don't necessarily have to have the same training every year, that we can really diversify what we can offer parents, and also hopefully to connect more parents across the Cape and Islands to share their stories, their resources, and to have a group of parents that they can go to. And so that is my presentation. I'm hoping Dr. Carpenter timed me to see if I beat my 7-minute one last time, but I would entertain any questions that you have about the Special Education Parent Advisory Council.
Thank you, Melissa. I don't know that anyone timed you, but I think that might have been 3 minutes. So thank you so much. And that was so fantastic. Oh, 4 minutes, I'm being told. 4 minutes. Any questions, comments? Sharon, go ahead.
Yes, I'm wondering how many parents attend on an average for a meeting, and if there are more from a certain age level children or not.
So, the CPAC doesn't actually hold meetings. They offer trainings because what they've learned is the meetings really don't address every parent's needs because they're so diverse. But I can tell you this year, and we hold the parent rights training every year, we had more parents come this year because it was virtual. So they didn't have to travel, they didn't have to find babysitters. So I was so pleased, and Emily was able to also introduce herself to the parents at that forum. So I really am hoping to continue to offer that as a way for parents to connect. But they're all ages. Emily is a parent of several children, but she has a preschool child, and she has some other kids that are coming up. But so there was a range. And then we also hosted a transition meeting for parents, or training for parents. So for kids who are graduating or in that 18 to 22, turning 22. So, we're trying to meet the needs of diverse parents.
Well, I was the school committee representative several years back, and I remember, I think it was Mrs. Canto was the head of it. But at that time, there were meetings, and I agree with you, some trainings are very helpful, but what I liked about the meetings were that the parents could talk and share and ask questions from each other and all of that. Is that something that can happen at the end of trainings, or how would that people go
So
about that?
Emily is, that's a great question for Emily, because I really defer to her leadership in moving the CPAC forward. I know she's looking forward to hosting some coffees and some gatherings to really get feedback from parents of what would they like to see happen. So I'm going to defer that to her and the work she's going to do in the district in the upcoming months and next year to really connect with our families.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? And I just want to say, Sharon, that was a very good question, because I come from, this is how I got into education. It was called SEAC in Virginia, and I was on the advisory committee for the school board at that time. So this is really important to me. So I really, really appreciate what you shared tonight, Melissa. I love the regional CPAC. I think that is fantastic. And speaking back to what Sharon was talking about, in Virginia, we had a parent resource center, a place what Sharon was talking about, kind of if you had questions, where could you go? So I really like that this is kind of being revived, I suppose, or however you want to say it. And I really appreciate Emily, I think it was Emily, who is leading this. And I just so appreciate it. And I look forward to meeting her in person when we can do that as soon as possible. And Meredith, not to put you on the spot, but you're our CPAC or CPAC liaison, and I didn't know if you wanted to add anything.
Just kind of add to what Melissa was saying. We're really excited that that Emily has stepped up to kind of take the lead on this. And when we did have that, wonderful conversation a couple months back, she is, a mom of younger children, so she's just kind of learning herself. And it's really nice to be able to have Melissa as a resource for Emily as she kind of builds her understanding around the process. And then, soon, hopefully, or within the next few months, she will open it up to, having a coffee hour or, a Zoom session or something to chat with parents. But it's really nice that we have somebody that is willing to kind of take this on. So I'm excited for it to kind of get re-engaged too.
Thank you. Absolutely. Anybody else? School committee. Melissa, as always, thank you for your wonderful presentations. Thank you. All right, moving to the next item is the Regional Agreement Work Group report and next steps. So on the 28th of May, Joe, myself, Nancy, Terry, and Scott, we all met with our regional work group. Just to remind everybody, it's the town manager, 2 town managers, the 2 finance directors. Michael, you were with us as well, getting all the finance, everybody around the virtual table. And just to kind of check in, now that we have put the administrators have put a recommendation on the table, just kind of as a check-in point as to how everybody was, now that we've done our 2 community forums. Chatham has hosted theirs. And so I just wanted to kind of offer a quick report and ask anybody that joined me at that meeting if there's anything you want to share. But I think there was consensus in the group. I mean, everybody in that particular group, not that we took an official vote, but there was a lot of an appreciation for the administrative recommendation, that they did go and really put a lot of effort into thinking through their proposal and putting it forward. So there was a lot of appreciation to the administrative team for doing that. We also, consensus in the group is we still have a financial inequity issue. So there were a couple of suggestions made, and I just wanted to kind of just report on these. One was that we might form some type of like a financial group to really look at that inequity piece and try to come up with some type of proposal, because we still have the 2 towns. We're kind of caught in the middle, and we just thought, how can we move something forward? Because we've got, if we were to have a special town meeting on an inequity issue, that has to move quickly. So that was one thing. The other suggestion that was made was the creation of a subcommittee or an ad hoc group to explore possibilities about the elementary configuration, to include other voices in the conversation. There was some consensus in the working group that we've heard pretty strongly from one group, but we wanted to hear from more, and how could we do that? So there was a suggestion. Somebody was talking, a couple of people were talking about when the regional agreement first came together. I guess there was a working group or some type of subcommittee that really explored the possibilities, and we might be at a point now that we want to revisit that type of model, just to pull more conversations in. So that's my report. Did anybody from the working group want to add? Joe, Terry, or Nancy? Anything you want to add from that, or Scott? I guess
No,
I hit all.
I think you did a nice job summarizing. Thank you.
Okay, all right, good. So this isn't, we'll talk about this a little later in the agenda. So this is, again, part of our school committee goals. So I'll touch on that later on in that item. So now we'll move to the next item, which is the reorganization meeting. This is just a reminder, next meeting, June 24th, we will have a reorganization meeting. It's that one wonderful meeting. It's almost like the wonderful time of the year when the superintendent gets to open up the meeting. And so that, and then we will elect a new, or select, I guess, a new chair and a new vice chair. And I want to take this opportunity right now to thank Joanne Sheehan. She has moved around on my screen. And Joanne, this is your last meeting. And I really, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for your years of service. It has been an absolute delight working with you so closely this year as chair and vice chair. And I'm actually a little sad to see you go. I'm going to try to hold my tears back. But it's been wonderful working with you. And I don't know if there's anything you want to share, or anybody from the school committee. Oh, and you're on mute.
I've enjoyed the challenge. I'm going to miss it terribly, but things happen in life that really demand your attention. So that's what I'm going to do. As long as I'm up and moving, that's what I've got to do. So, but I'll miss you all, or I'll come hang out at central office. Take your pick. So
there you go.
You never know.
There you
Thank
go.
you. I thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Joanne. Anybody else? All right, Joanne, thank you. Oh, Sharon, go ahead.
Just want to say, I don't think we've had a better writer for these different things, including the superintendent evaluation, since I've been on the school committee. So thank you for that and many other things.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. And again, so that will, next meeting, June 24th, we're going to reorganize ourselves. We will have a new school committee member sitting where Joanne was sitting. So just wanted to give everybody that reminder. That'll happen at the next meeting. So moving into the next item is the first reading of the 2020-2021 superintendent evaluation. Joe, I don't know if you would kind of like to lead us through this, or if you want me to lead us through.
It will help immensely if I unmute. Yeah, the superintendent evaluation first reading is that part of the year where school committee members have written an evaluation, it's called a narrative assessment. I'm trying to find the specific pages, but I don't think it matters. Yeah, it's part of, this is more for the public. It's part of this, the end of cycle summative evaluation report. And we make our overall judgments and assessments of all the standards and subcategories. We have a chance to write an essay of no determinate length or make comments of no determinate length. It is, it's not a requirement by law, but I think it's an important part of evaluating the superintendent. And as far as I know, going back to the beginning, the school committee has always read out the superintendent evaluation summaries that the members have written. These stay on file. They are a public document accessible to anyone in the public who wishes to see them. And from the reading tonight, they are collected by the chair or the designee appointed by the chair, and that person goes through them. That person then writes an overall assessment based on the preponderance of commentary by members. And we've tweaked the law a little bit and said that every member on the committee should have a comment included, should they wish to, and that members can highlight a section of their commentary that could be included in the overall presentation that will occur at our next meeting. So between now and then, Ms. Sheehan has been working on this. She will, however, not be available to be reading this document as she's not on the committee. This comes at a break point in terms of the electoral cycle. So we'll be on our own resources at that time. I have floated the thought that we hire Ms. Sheehan as a consultant to read, but I'm not going to float that idea, because as soon as I mentioned it, Mr. McMillan froze and looked horrified. So we're not going to tamper with the budget any further. So we'll be on our own. So this is my way of saying thank you for the work you've done, Joanne. You are really going to be missed.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay, and I guess with that being said, we're going to open up the floor to read our evaluations for anyone who chooses to do so. And if whoever wants to go first, I guess we have to, well, we don't have to do anything, but if you could just, I guess step 2, we've always kind of shared where we marked, and then step 3, and then read our comments. So I'm just going to open up the floor for anybody who would like to start. Sharon, go ahead.
I'll be the fastest one. Although I rated Dr. Carpenter as proficient in many performance standards, his work in 3 areas are exemplary. District Improvement Goal 2 has exceeded my expectations for this year. Dr. Carpenter's leadership in promoting equity through the high school seminar and the Equity Task Force for all levels has been truly exemplary. Number two, Dr. Carpenter's well-written communications, especially to parents as a group, regarding health and safety, were critically important during this time of COVID-19. And three, in the area of management and operations of the environment, Dr. Carpenter's leadership in addressing health, safety, and emotional needs were exemplary. In summary, during this pandemic, I have never been prouder of the Monomoy schools. This credit goes to parents, students, teachers, and staff, but also in very large part goes to the leadership of Dr. Carpenter. Monomoy, by staying open and providing education and stability, was a beacon of commitment to our children, families, community, while enforcing the necessary safety measures to do so.
Thank you, Sharon. Who would like to read next? Terry, go ahead. And then Jackie.
Thanks, Tina. Reviewing the four standards, 3 out of the 4 I rated Scott, the second year in the role, as exemplary. How I summarize in my narrative is the following. As I stated last year, the 2019-2020 school year was unique and unprecedented in the long history of public education, yet there was more to come. Last year clearly served as a dress rehearsal for Scott and his leadership team. This is what I wish to be underlined. 2 issues stood out: COVID and Chatham Elementary School, as excellent examples of Scott's work ethic, his commitment to quality learning, his creative vision, and his outspoken courage to take on major challenges head on. He faced the ongoing COVID crisis with a calm resolve to put in place a 3-phase learning mode, which became a Cape-wide model to emulate. He also enacted a daily and weekly monitoring of COVID impact in all the Monomoy schools. His team's efforts were rewarded day in and day out. His nurses and teachers' daily vigilance paid healthy dividends. His weekly updates to staff, parents, and the community were fact-filled yet cautiously optimistic, urging all to follow healthy best practices during this pandemic. These efforts I would rank as exemplary. After 3 years of analysis and discussion regarding the ongoing Chatham Elementary School student demographic and the resulting cost disparity between the 2 towns, Scott has taken the lead in creating a plan to balance both both the fiscal student inequity and also the plan to address the future improvement of elementary learning by way of a proposed upper and lower elementary school realignment. Regardless of the future decision by the towns regarding this issue, Scott's professional input and ongoing outreach to the community, in my judgment, has been exemplary.
Thank you, Terry. Jackie, go ahead.
Hey guys. First, I want to tell you I'm sorry about my forehead. I had a little neck thing today, so I'm just keeping my head back. That's why you're only seeing my forehead, but I'm now holding my phone just for Dr. Carpenter. My overall rating this year for Dr. Carpenter was proficient, but I would like to note that in rate of impact on student learning, I did rate as high. Dr. Carpenter continues to take large strides with our district. His countless hours, determination, and creativity has allowed our administration, staff, and students to continue to thrive in what some might say the most difficult year of our district's existence. Countless forums for parents, students, and staff were available to keep everyone informed, educated, and able to monitor the progress of our district. With 2 new principals in the district, transition and time was necessary to not only get everyone up to speed, but they needed mentorship in their new roles and had additional challenges from day one. There was much to be learned from our distance learning model, some positive and some not. However, the data we continued to collect gave surprising results, enabled us to diversify our teaching, and led classroom instruction in much more dynamic settings. What I am most proud of our superintendent for and the district was their quick response to the need for improvement and how we respond to our cultural diversities and what that should look like as we move forward. The district launched the Equity Task Force, and promptly many other subcommittees took the lead with the roles they play in our community. I look forward to our 2021-2022 school year, and to continue to watch and support the growth of our district under the guidance and leadership of Superintendent Dr. Scott Carpenter. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Nancy, go ahead. And then Meredith.
I rated Dr. Carpenter as proficient and met his progress towards goals and high impact on student learning. And before going into the evaluation details and knowing specifically that he will hate this, I feel it's necessary to sing the praises of Dr. Carpenter's vision and desire to get our kids in the classrooms as much as possible, while also providing a safe environment for all at the start of the 2020 school year. By working with administrators, teachers, staff, parents, students, and the community, Dr. Carpenter worked to create collaborative plans for the reopening of all of our buildings as much and as soon as possible in September for all students at every level. This provided the best educational, psychological, and social environment for our students. There were so many positives that happened for our kids this year because of your drive. Regarding Dr. Carpenter's goals for the 2021 school year, they were extremely appropriate and quite ambitious given the school year. In addition to dealing with COVID, our district also had 2 new to the role administrators. Dr. Carpenter helped guide them and provided outside support as they needed, showing excellent leadership skills. While he was unable to meet with the principals as much as he desired, I feel they benefited from the constant communication that was essential for this year. I also very much appreciate all of the efforts that Dr. Carpenter made regarding community outreach throughout the school year. Parents, teachers, and community members were consistently informed and able to communicate during the multiple forums that were held before school started and throughout the year. And if the COVID challenges weren't enough, Dr. Carpenter also pursued and ultimately provided an all administrator recommendation of the best elementary school configuration for Monomoy. While not a popular recommendation, Dr. Carpenter kept a cool head during the multiple conversations with parents and community members, explaining the rationale and providing the whys. And finally, I look forward to the more detailed information and data that Dr. Carpenter collects and analyzes regarding the multiple learning modes on our students' experience this year. While not ideal for everyone, I do feel online learning has a place in public schools going forward. Ultimately, I rated Dr. Carpenter proficient for the 2020-2021 school year. I did find him to be exemplary in many areas, and I found it difficult not to rate him overall as exemplary. While incredibly successful in his leadership role this past year, there were initiatives that had to be put aside to deal with the immediate issues. I feel it would have been impossible for him to have done it all, and I am grateful for the choices he made with the administrative team and the teachers to provide as much in-person learning as possible this year for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Meredith?
Can I just say ditto to Nancy's? Okay. After reviewing Dr. Carpenter's goals for the 2020-2021 school year, it's clear that he has focused on his professional goals and made significant progress. During this school year, it has been essential to have clear communication with staff, families, and community members. Dr. Carpenter held and participated in multiple virtual meetings to share information about what was happening in our schools, as well as answer questions from parents and community members. Dr. Carpenter's other professional goal was to support the new members of the administration across the schools. Although informal meetings happened because of the ongoing changes due to COVID, the formal meetings did not happen as often as hoped. Dr. Carpenter was able to have an outside mentor to support the new administrators, in addition to frequent communication that he had with them. The students, sorry. Hold, please.
I think that's a vote of support, perhaps.
And you're getting my dog riled up by hearing your dog bark.
I thought it was Scott.
I'm sorry. Oh gosh, I don't know what to do. Hold on.
Okay, Meredith, I hate to stop you right there in that great sentence you were in.
But we can come
Tina, I
back.
could give some context without reading a report. There's a
Yeah,
couple
why
of
don't you do
pieces of
that?
information.
Okay,
Yeah,
that would be great.
until Meredith returns safely, just very quickly, when we, and this is for the people who are going to be listening to us when they go to YouTube and look at this or this section of it, and it's something that's not terribly clear. And Meredith, I'm not going to be reading. We're coming back to you in a moment, so you're on deck. But when we say we rate the superintendent as proficient, what people should know is there are 4 standards: unsatisfactory, needs improvement, proficient, and exemplary. It's deliberately not put as 5 categories. It's not intended to correlate between A to C and F and so on. Proficient is defined as proficient practice is understood to be fully satisfactory. This is the rigorous expected level of performance. So I would just ask people who are viewing our proceedings tonight to know that this is not faint praise at all. Proficient, again, fully satisfactory, rigorous level of performance. It's a very high rating. Meredith, back to you.
Hopefully background. Okay, so the student learning goal for this year focused on reviewing data around assessment, grades, and attendance. Dr. Carpenter, curriculum director, and the director of student services to determine trends across the assessments and identify areas of learning gaps for our students. Although COVID has affected all students to some degree, the ability for Monomoy students to have significant in-person learning opportunities this year will help to not widen the gap further. Dr. Carpenter's district improvement goal was connected directly to the strategic plan. He shared key information around reopening plans, up-to-date COVID information, and analysis of the possible elementary configurations. The information was always delivered in a clear and concise manner, and Dr. Carpenter was able to answer any questions for clarity around each topic he was presenting on. Overall, I feel that Dr. Carpenter has made significant progress or met all of his goals for the 2020-2021 school year. I have given Dr. Carpenter an overall rating of proficient for this evaluation. Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith. Joanne, go ahead.
Well, rather than go through all the checks and pluses and X's, I'm going to focus on the exemplary that I chose for family and community engagement, and that drove my writing. And I also called you Scott halfway through, but you're a lot younger than I am, so that's an okay thing. So, but I start off formal, it just goes downhill after that. This superintendent's evaluation is best completed when one looks at an action plan through the comparable lenses of what was done well and what can be improved upon. In all instances, the pandemic of 2020 will filter each action taken. On March 12, 2020, the COVID pandemic required that we hunker down in our homes for an undefined period of time. Dr. Carpenter, the administration, and staff realized the greatest need was to provide food to Monomoy students and families. A plan was put in place for daily food pickup. Dr. Carpenter speaks with pride of the Monomoy community, but in satisfying this basic human need, his talk turned to action. While the streets of Harwich and Chatham remained empty, Scott and his team, working with DESE directives, planned the reopening of Monomoy schools in September, and they met with success. Certainly hurdles had to be met: masks, COVID clusters, internet interruptions, attendance, and more, but students continued their learning with relevant lessons created and supervised by the teachers, staff, and administrators. Will our students have gaps in learning? Well, that's certainly a possibility. Monomoy has a strong instructional staff. Our students will be assessed in a variety of ways and gaps addressed. The question has been addressed by administration and planned for. Although bragging might be considered unflattering, Monomoy is one of the few school districts that remained open during an unprecedented time in our country. Despite the upheaval of the pandemic, Dr. Carpenter has stayed focused on the strategic plan, especially communications with the community. At every step taken to continue a strong educational program, Scott not only informed the community of the path forward, but he provided a frank discussion of his rationale. Recognizing his plan may not gain approval from all, several times he used the phrase, "I'm sure this response isn't what you wanted to hear," but in his communications, How fortunate our community is to have a leader who recognizes the basic human need of belonging and that his goal is always to serve best our students. Again, referencing the basic human need of belonging, Monomoy has put into place an equity task force with the goal that includes, but not limited to, racial equity in the education. An aspirational venture, it seems the committee should continue to use their own expertise to produce the authentic product. Finally, I applaud the work done by Monomoy professionals, teachers, and administrators working in tandem who use their expert knowledge and experiences to inform a possible resolution for Chatham Elementary School's too small school issue, not to be confused with too small classes. The presentation given by Dr. Carpenter and his administration was significant because it questions how best we might educate our children from 2021 on. Education has changed substantially over the past 30 years. The small neighborhood elementary school may not fit current best practices in education, and our community has the right to demand continuous improvement. And for that, I went with the exemplary.
Thank you, Joanne. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll come towards the end and then the chair can read and wrap it up and be the concluding voice. Just a quick preface to what first, some of this is repetitious, which is what happens when you go towards the end. You're going to say what other people said, but we're describing a similar reality. And then just, if I might, just one little tiny human element here. Those of us who were teachers were evaluated regularly. Those of us who are teachers now are, of course, getting evaluations. I'd like to think, I believe most of us received positive evaluations most of the time, but they were not done in public. And they were not preserved. That just adds a certain, I don't know, je ne sais pas to this whole question. I would just not be eager to have my evaluations, even positive ones, read aloud for two towns to hear. Okay, here are my comments. Every academic year could reasonably be described as a challenging one. Multiple issues arise on many levels. Decisions must be made, and sometimes in unique circumstances, experience provides little or no guidance in navigating the best course forward. COVID pandemic added more than the usual stresses and burdens to the tasks of public education. School districts in the Commonwealth were required to submit reopening plans by the end of July 2020 that included 3 models: in-person school learning, remote learning, and a hybrid of the 2. More comprehensive plans were required just 2 weeks later, while additional efforts were needed to assist families that chose in-home learning as an option. The superintendent and administrative team met these challenges in an exemplary fashion. To quote Sherry Armstrong, chairwoman of the Cape and Islands Area Massachusetts Educator Action Network, quote, "We're in a great position in Monomoy," unquote, from the Cape Cod Times, August 1st, 2020. Any reasonable observer would conclude that the district maintained its great position throughout the school year. We anticipate the same statement will hold true a few months from now when schools open this coming fall. Major educational decisions, large in scope and involving numerous stakeholders, are inevitably political decisions as well. That fact only compounds the difficulty in reaching the best solution to any problem. Dr. Carpenter has provided for the school committee and the public documentary material that is thoughtful, well-organized, and well-researched. The superintendent's presentation on the topics of inequities in elementary per pupil budgets and the best elementary school configuration set a standard that other school leaders would wish to emulate. The art of politics consists in knowing what to do next. In the coming year, as the school committee engages with difficult and controversial issues about funding, the future of the elementary school, and amendments to our Constitution, that is the regional agreement, committee members will benefit from the insights and advice from Dr. Carpenter as we collectively determine what to do next. Hang on, folks, there's more. A positive refinement or adjustment is evident when Dr. Carpenter engages with the public. In the past, in a commendable effort to be open and transparent, the superintendent's comments could be unintentionally diminished by an overabundance of data that tended to obscure his main point. Now the superintendent's narrative presentations are making use of data rather than being crowded out or overwhelmed by the data. As a result, the proportions are more precise and proper, while the goal of transparency is better achieved. The presentations by the superintendent are increasingly more effective. Of course, an audience's ability to listen is determined by its own biases and its own interests. Turning to the essential fiscal issue, we would note also that the perennially difficult process of seeing the district's budget through to completion was made unnecessarily difficult by the short-sighted political decisions adopted unanimously by the Harwich Board of Selectmen. As individuals and as a group, they show little interest in or understanding of public education. It becomes increasingly urgent for the superintendent to explain and advocate for the school district, to highlight why the Monomoy schools have been and continue to be an overall benefit for both towns. Finally, our fundamental core value is to educate the young people in our district. We look to adopt policies and practices which increase student learning. Throughout the United States in the past year and a half, that mission has been disrupted. Going forward, the superintendent and the administrative team will need to assess the extent of educational loss and gains among students, and will need to develop or fine-tune the best strategies that will lift student achievement to the highest levels possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And I'll wrap it up with my comments. While I have marked the superintendent as proficient overall, there are two areas that I want to highlight, both exceeding expectations in my view. Reading the definition of what it means to be exemplary, and I'm taking it from Desi's definition, quote, could serve as a model of practice regionally or statewide, unquote. I feel compelled to mark the superintendent as exemplary in two categories. The first one, family and community engagement. Having a background in public relations, as I do, and evaluating Dr. Carpenter through this lens, I have observed many occasions in this school year, whether it was adjusting to COVID-related measures or discussing the financial inequities between our two towns or the future of our elementary schools, where he has gone above and beyond in his engagement with families, community members, and local town officials. Whether it's been an email response, a work group meeting, a community forum, a conversation with the superintendent, Dr. Carpenter leaves no stone unturned, always striving to answer questions, provide data, engage in thoughtful dialogue, consider new ideas, and solicit different opinions. In the second area of exemplary, professional culture, the superintendent also deserves high marks in the area of educational equity and was fully committed to the school committee's resolutions on racism, race, and education, and remained thoughtfully engaged with our Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment in the area of cultural proficiency, which resulted in the formation of an equity task force. It has been a pleasure, a real pleasure, working with the superintendent this year in the role as school committee chair. And my one area of improvement for Dr. Carpenter would be to take a well-deserved vacation that I know he did not get this year without his cell phone blowing up. And with that, I conclude. Thank you, everybody, for reading. Superintendent, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to, thank you for your kind words. I also just want to reflect on one thing that as a kid always sort of troubled me. I I am not a New York Yankees fan. I will put that out there from the get-go. But I always wondered over the years, why is it that the New York Yankees kept winning? And I always ask myself, was it really Billy Martin? Was it Joe Torre? Like, were they responsible for what was happening to my beloved Red Sox, or did they just have an exemplary team? And what I've come to appreciate here at Monomoy is that you can't lead unless you've got a team, and you can't keep schools open during a pandemic unless you've got a truly exemplary team. And I just want to sort of acknowledge that your kind words are in many ways misplaced. That what we managed to do this past year was because we have the best nurses, we've got the best custodial group and IT staff, I've got the best teachers, I've got the best families that have stuck with us through all of this. I've got a great administrative team at the building level. I've got a great central office and business office crew. And most importantly, behind the scenes, I've got two incredible women, Leah and Joy, who support me and support our schools every day to go and help that exemplary team sort of all function together with me. So thank you very much. And I just like to thank the team that I have working with me to go make the system happen.
Thank you, Superintendent. And I appreciate your comments, and absolutely, the team matters. And at the same time, I want to just say to you, there's a quote by John Quincy Adams, and the quote is, "If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader." So I appreciate that you've always looked out for your team. I expect that from you. But I'm going to wrap up by just thanking you for your leadership, because that's what we're talking about tonight. So thank you so much. And moving on to the next item, which is the school committee goals. And I just want to take a minute to review the goals, since we are kind of here at a year end of the school year, and we are changing leadership here in a couple of weeks. So in your packets is a copy of the goals that we set in our workshop earlier, I guess, in the school year. And I just wanted to kind of go down these and just do a quick review. The first one, review and update Monomoy Regional Agreement. I mean, that has, as I had reported earlier, that has the whole working group that we are continuing to meet with. I think we've made a lot of progress there and still working on it. So I think we all, those of us that have been in the working group, have really kind of focused on that goal, and it's still a work in progress, but we have really, really, really checked off quite a lot of those things. The second one, engage with the Monomoy administrative team to ensure the fidelity to the SMART goals of the strategic plan. I think that's been done this year too. We've had a lot of presentations this year, and which I very much appreciate. And then, of course, the big thing that we did this year, the anti-racism resolution and the statement on race and education, was a really, really big step for our school committee this year. And I know that's been very, very much appreciated out in the community. I still get a lot of appreciation and notes of gratitude and that sort of thing for our work in that area. So I think we've really made a lot of progress there. Number 3 is explore the expansion of student voice within the Monomoy Regional School District. And I just want to speak on behalf of policy. The policy subcommittee is reviewing right now, actually, the policy. We have done a lot of research into what the law is, and I just want to thank Melissa McGuire for her efforts in helping us do that. And we're having some conversations, and we should be bringing forth a policy for your consideration regarding the student voice, and that will be coming very soon. I think, Sharon, I think that's in a couple of weeks, I believe, is on our agenda. So we're, again, another place where we have made a lot of progress. And then the last one, I'm actually just going to turn it over to Joe, is review the superintendent evaluation. And Joe, if you could speak to the goals and where we are in that area, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 4 was review superintendent evaluation. That task fell to a subcommittee that consisted of Terry Russell, Sharon Stout, Joanne Sheehan, and myself. There were 3 action steps. A is, I think, somewhat a little bit misworded. It says revise current processes so feedback will be accurate and valuable. What we did was review current processes and then made a choice about whether or not to revise or recommend revision. So one of the things we did was to study educational academic research on the function of the school committees and their relation to superintendents and the best models for evaluating superintendents. We did research that and we made a recommendation to the school committee, which was adopted. Next to B, analyze professional documents supporting 1- and 2-year evaluation cycles. We have discussed 1- or 2-year cycles of evaluating the superintendent. We've in fact discussed it and came to a conclusion this evening prior to the full school committee meeting. And by a majority vote, the sentiment of the subcommittee is that we should continue with a 1-year evaluation cycle of the superintendent. We feel that has been proven effective and helpful both for school committee members and the superintendent also. And thus we begin the superintendent evaluation cycle for the next year. So the superintendent going forward and considering his own goals will be doing so with the understanding that its goals are for a 1-year cycle rather than a 2-year cycle, excuse me. And so I feel we've completed our work in a timely fashion that provides the superintendent some flexibility to plan out his understanding of the year to come. And having at least brought this up today and with this point open for discussion, my hope is that at the next school committee meeting, I believe June 24th, we should be able to vote on the recommendations that I've just mentioned from the superintendent evaluation subcommittee, so that we raise them today, we can vote on them in the next meeting, as is our usual practice.
Thank you, Joe. So Leah, I know you're here. If you could just make a note, please, of that for the June 24th agenda, that would be great. Thank you. Any comments, questions from school committee members about the goals? All right, seeing none, we're going to move into subcommittee reports. Sharon, if I may call on you to kind of just give us a quick synopsis of, we've got 2 policies up for a first reading. So go ahead.
Yes, the school attorney draft is something that we've talked about, not in this kind of specifics, but as you can see, 1 paragraph is taken out and replaced with, the school committee recognizes that in certain circumstances, legal matters may arise where a timely response from the committee is necessary. In such an event, the chair, acting as representative of the school committee, has the authority to seek legal advice prior to notifying the school committee. At the next regularly scheduled school committee meeting or in an executive session, the chair will inform the committee of the legal issue. If litigation is expected to be ongoing or further legal advice is anticipated, the chair will, after informing the committee of the matter, request the approval of the school committee to continue to seek legal advice or assistance for such time as necessary, and will keep the committee informed of legal developments. The same privilege to take such action will be granted to the superintendent or to the superintendent's designee, who will keep the chair and the school committee informed of ongoing legal matters. So we have discussed that before, but just consider that. So we will probably vote on that the next meeting.
Okay,
The-
and hope, oh, Sharon, before you move into the next one, any questions regarding the school attorney policy that's in your packet? Any questions? All right, so we're going to move that to a second reading unless, and I don't see any objection. So that will
Yes.
come back on the 24th for second reading. All right, great. Sharon, so you can go into the next one.
The other one is the wellness policy on physical activity and nutrition. So this is a draft, and if you have your former one, it was 11 pages. That's been cut down to 2.5 pages or 3 pages. And so there's a lot of specifics that were worked on from subcommittees that are being removed. I just want you to look and see if you agree with those things. The things that have been added are mainly that the Wellness Committee will form an advisory committee, which must include, it says a student and parent, to meet with the Director of Food Services at least every other month to review the process for the menu planning and discuss ways to strengthen the nutrition food services program. I would recommend that we kind of rush this at the very end, that we change that to must include at least a student and parent or parents. But at any rate, take a look at it. And if you have any questions, feel free to bring it up.
All right, any questions regarding the wellness policy that's in your packet as presented in your packet? And I can assure you the wellness subcommittee vetted this thoroughly, and then policy also did it as well. All right, I see no hands raised, so I'm going to take that as it can move to a second reading, which will be on June 24th. So we're moving both of these
Okay.
policies. Oh, Sharon?
Tina, because I recommended that we just do that minor change of to say at least, sometimes when we've done a first reading, if there's a very minor change like that and people didn't have any objection, there could be 2 students or 2 parents or something that would like to be on this advisory committee. So,
Okay. So is it everybody okay? It's just 2 words, at least. We'll squeeze those in. I don't see any opposition. Okay, and it's a very minor change. All right, so we'll make those 2 words, put those 2 words in there, and it will come back for a second reading on the 24th.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Now we move into the superintendent's report. So superintendent.
All right. First of all, in terms of graduation, I want to thank the Chatham and Harwich Police and Fire Departments for helping out in the processional this past Sunday. Thanks to Our Lady of Grace Church in Chatham for the use of their parking lot as a staging area. And thank you to the community members and families that lined the route to cheer on the graduates as they drove by. Thank you to the graduates for not having anybody run into each other this year. It's nice to have everybody show up at the high school together. Many thanks to the staff that volunteered at graduation to help out during the ceremony. It was a great ceremony. It was a challenging year in terms of graduation because the directives from the state on what would be appropriate or allowed at graduation kept changing on a daily and weekly basis. So it was so nice to see the families there and to see us get to a place where the state was saying we could not only have families but have others from the community there. So it was just nice to see a football field full of people celebrating the graduates, and I felt that Jen Police and her staff did a wonderful job. Second, in terms of student projects, there's a project that ultimately will get pitched here to the school committee, but there'll be a project citizen presentation at the upcoming Harwich Selectmen's meeting, where the students will be presenting their project citizen problem or thing that they want to advocate for, which is a solar canopy project over the larger parking lots at the high school. So I've been clear that they need to pitch both to our school committee, but also to the selectmen, much the same way that that we had to discuss with the selectmen the solar array that was installed on top of the high school because it exists in the town of Harwich. So, so if you want to see another type of student project, tune into the upcoming selectmen's meeting in Harwich, but that presentation will be coming to you very soon. Third, I want to thank Dr. Teresa Corcoran, who's our district physician and Outer Cape Healthcare, for helping us out in a pinch. One of the things that you'll hear us talking about probably in the upcoming school committee meeting is a plan to do a summer enrichment opportunity for some of our EL students, particularly some of our newer EL students at the elementary level. These are students who, if we look back at some of the data at the elementary schools, have had the biggest learning gaps during this period of COVID. And we want to go and make sure that we're doing something and using some of these ESSER monies to address some of those biggest gaps. But some of these families are new here. There's language barriers, and there are many of these children who don't have physicals and the vaccines that they need to be part of this summer camp that we're trying to put in place. And Outer Cape Healthcare has pitched in and will be taking care of getting those physicals and vaccinations all taken care of so that the kids can take advantage of this opportunity we're putting out there for them. Fourth, in terms of just sort of a congratulations or a welcome, we had a hiring process for the Chatham Elementary School principal. As everybody knows, Dr. Millen will be going to the neighboring school district to our north to work in a curriculum capacity in that district. So we are hiring or have hired a new principal at Chatham Elementary School. When we are back in person, we'll have the new principal come in and have you meet her in person and have her introduce herself. But I will briefly introduce her. I've hired Dr. Jennifer Kelly for the role. Dr. Kelly is currently the principal of the Martin Elementary School in North Attleboro. She has a really strong background in humanities and language arts. She's also worked with a gifted and talented program. She has been both an assistant principal and a math and science coordinator in another school district, and has her doctorate from Northeastern in curriculum teaching and learning. I think she has a wonderful set of experiences in terms of project-based learning and social emotional learning that she can bring to this. And I do think that she's somebody who can really fill some of that elementary curricular expertise that we've seen over the year from Robin, and have us not lose any headway at that. So welcome, Dr. Kelly. And as I said, when we're in person, I can't wait to have her meet this group. Let's see, my second to last thing. Today, I feel like a very old man. I've shared this with some people. So just over 19 years ago, I was in the auditorium of the former Lincoln Sudbury High School, and my son had just been born. And this gentleman from the community walks up to me, and he was congratulating me on being a new dad. And he said, Scott, my advice to you is take lots of pictures. They grow up fast. So so today I was happy to go and send that same person a text because I have hired his son now to teach science and technology at Chatham Elementary School. And I'm sending him a text saying, do you remember this conversation you had with me some 19 years ago? I said, your boy and my boy have clearly grown up. I hope we've both taken lots of pictures, but God, I'm feeling very old. So it was just nice to kind of see see life kind of come full circle in many ways there. Last and not least, Ms. Sheehan, I am going to miss you. You have been a wonderful person to just talk to about education. It's like, I don't know if I've had many school committee members over the years who I think get education like you do. It's just nice to see how when you talk education, your face lights up. And it in many ways, ever since you've been part of the of our team here, it's like you've kind of made my day sort of brighten up with that smile when you start talking about teaching and learning. So thank you for what you've provided me and our community and this committee.
Thank you. Yeah, I do love education, and I guess anybody who's taught 8th grade for 30 years better like it.
And then last but not least, in terms of my COVID-19 update, knock on wood, but it has been very quiet on the COVID front. I sent out today an email to our staff entitled Baby Steps Towards a New Normal. So we have professional development coming up on so the students' last day is a week from tomorrow. There's a half day of school. The teachers come in the following Monday and Tuesday to do a professional development. I've put out to our staff, we won't have students with us in the building then. If you've been vaccinated, you are welcome to come in and let's start being, we can take off our masks and hopefully this begins our progression towards that, that new normal. I'll be meeting this week with our health team and starting to plan out what the summer looks like. I anticipate that that individuals who haven't been vaccinated are still going to need masks this summer, but my hope is that that things keep tracking in the direction that they're going, and that we will be in a much more normal place come September than even we are now. That's it for me.
Thank you very much. Any comments, questions for the superintendent? All right, seeing none, we're going to move into action items. And the first item is the declaration of surplus. Could I have a motion, or would somebody want to take this on? Meredith, please, thank you.
I would like to make a motion to approve all items to be moved to surplus as listed in our packet.
Thank you, Meredith. Second?
Second.
All right, Nancy has seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, and this is for the declaration of surplus. Joanne, we'll start with you.
Yay.
Thank you. Joe? Thank you. Terry?
Aye.
Thank you, Sharon.
Aye.
Thank you, Nancy.
Aye.
Jackie?
Aye.
Meredith?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So that is, oh, sorry, that's unanimous there. And the second is the class of 2021 donation approval. There is a vote required. Michael, is this you?
Yeah, well, I mean, strictly speaking, student activities, student activity money is the students' money, but so they can really do what they like with it within reason. And however, the advice from the state is that when they're making a donation, we should bring it to school committee for approval nevertheless, because districts aren't actually allowed to make donations normally, but because this is student money, it's allowed. But so advice from the state is we should bring it to you guys for your approval, just to make sure we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions regarding this? All right, can I have a motion then to approve? Nancy?
We can let Meredith.
All right, I'll try. I would like to make a motion to approve the class of 2021 donation in the amount of $1,300 to the Friends of Harwich Youth to benefit Monomoy Regional High School student.
Okay, thank you. A second?
Second.
And Nancy is seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all right, we're gonna have a vote. Joanne, this is for the class of 2021 donation approval.
Yes.
Thank you. Joe?
Aye.
Thank you, Terry.
Aye.
Thank you, Sharon.
Aye.
Thank you, Nancy.
Aye.
Meredith,
Aye.
Jackie,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. So that is unanimous, which brings us to the presentation of warrants because we are meeting remotely tonight. Joanne has signed on our behalf for the final time. Joanne, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now we're going to move into adjournment, and we're going to have a roll call vote to adjourn into executive session pursuant to MGL C30A, Section 21, Paragraph 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the Monomoy Regional Educators Association, MREA, Unit A, if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the district's bargaining or litigating position, and the chair so declares, and we will come out of that session for adjournment only. So if I could have a motion to adjourn into executive session.
So moved.
Thank you, Joe. And a second?
Second.
And Joanne seconded, and we're going to roll call into adjournment for executive session. Start. Joanne, go ahead.
Yes.
Thank you, Joe.
Aye.
Thank you, Terry.
Yes.
Sharon.
Aye.
Thank you, Nancy.
Aye.
Meredith.
Aye.
Jackie.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So this meeting, public meeting, is adjourned at 8:42. This group of school committee members are moving into executive session, and we will come out for adjournment only. So thank you. And with that, I'm going to ask our clerk